Africans were forced into Christianity during slavery. Okay, before we came over here, we were not Christians. We had something called divine spirituality. Okay, we were forced into Christianity by the same people that beat us and raped us and tortured us and lynched us. Okay, now they did these things to us Monday through Saturday, and then Sunday they gave us Jesus. Now, I want you to ask yourself, was someone that did these things to us, these horrible things, raping and beating and torturing, lynching, breaking our families apart, they had someone come over and give them methods on how to keep us mentally weak. Would someone that does these things to us give us a religion that is going to uplift us and empower us? Now, in the very first video that I posted, I talked about Willie Lynch. Willie Lynch went from plantation to plantation, giving the slave masters different methods on how to keep us mentally weak, how to make us hate each other as people. And he said that if effective, his methods would work for 200 plus years. That was in the 1800s. And 200 plus years later, his methods still work very well with us. We are still very much mentally enslaved. Willie Lynch spoke very highly of King James, as in King James Version Bible. Yes, that King James. He spoke very highly of him. Now, with someone that is giving methods on how to keep us mentally weak speak highly of someone that's writing a book that is meant to empower and uplift us? I want you to ask yourself that question. I'm not going to answer any of these questions that I'm asking, by the way. I want you to ask yourself. I want you to think, which is something my people don't do too much. Think. I want you to think. Okay? Now, he spoke highly of this man that writes a book that is meant to uplift and empower us. Now, the Bible does condone slavery. Yes, I know that there are parts in the Bible that does, like, people, when I say that, people always mention Pharaoh and let people go. Yes, that is in the Bible, but it also condones it. That's one problem with Christians. They always just look at one part of the Bible and ignore the rest of it. You can't do that. If it's in there, it's in there. Okay? And so there are many verses that condone slavery. My personal favorite is Ephesians 6:5. Slaves, obey your earthly masters with fear and respect, and sincerity is part, just as you would obey Christ. Now, if a slave master reads that verse, what does he think? He's thinking, okay, so my slave is supposed to obey me, supposed to fear me, supposed to respect me the same way he does Christ. Okay? So now that they've given us this religion, they give us the scripture, and what does the scripture say to a slave's mind? Okay, I'm supposed to treat this white man like Christ. So subconsciously, it associates the white man with Christ. It associates the white man with God. So what that does is it makes the white man a superior, and it makes the black man an inferior. So that's what that does. It makes you, and it brings you down. It makes you think the white man is up here and you're all the way down here. You know what I mean? That's one of the things that the religion did to black people. Okay? Now, if a slave master and a slave has the same God, whose prayer does this biblical God answer? If the slave master is praying for his slave to be respectful and fearful and obedient, what is the slave praying for? Freedom. Well, for centuries, the slaves didn't have freedom. So whose prayers were being answered? You ask yourself that question. And there was a law written in 1705 in the Virginia Slave Act. You can look this up. And that law said that any person shipped over here from a Christian country was to be a servant. And the servant was to have decent food, decent clothing, decent shelter, and they were not to be whipped naked. If they were to be whipped, they had to keep their clothes on. And any slave master that did whip them naked had to pay that servant. That was a law now. That same law also states that any person shipped over here from a non-Christian country, that would be us, black Christians, that's us, you would be a slave. We all know how they treat the slave. And then you would be converted into Christianity. That is a law written in 1705, Virginia Slave Act. Look it up. Now, there were mothers, slaves that were mothers, that they would raise their children up to be Christians. From birth, they would raise them up to obey their masters and everything, and they were Christians, and they would take them to the slave masters, like, okay, so will you accept my child? Can my child be free? Because they're Christian. And so they had to make another law. It's in the Virginia Slave Code Act. Look it up. They had to make another law that said that Christianity will not bring you freedom. You cannot be free just because you are a Christian. And you are not exempt from any other treatment, any other punishment that any other slaves get. They had to make a law because of that. Because mothers were raising their children to be Christian. And they felt like, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and accept this religion. But will you at least accept my child because we accepted your religion? And no, they didn't.